This is part 4, chapter number 2, units and measurement of class 11. In the previous part, part number 3, we have studied about applications of dimensional analysis and its limitations. Now in this part, we'll study about significant figures and errors. Let's start with significant figures. Significant figures are the digits in a measured value which are known reliably plus the last digit which is uncertain. So together it makes the significant figures. Let's take an example. Let a measured distance is 597 meters. Here the first two digits 5 and 9, these are certain, these are reliable, but the last digit 7 is uncertain. Why? Because the measured value when it is taken, it may be 596 meters or it may be 598 meters. So the last digit is uncertain and the first digits of reliable. So the reliable digits plus the last digit which is uncertain, together it makes the significant figure. So here the number of significant figures in this measured value is 3. Now there are some rules for determining significant figures. The first one is all non-zero digits are significant. That is, the digits from 1 to 9, they are considered to be significant. For example, in this measured value 1256, there are 4 digits, so it has got 4 significant figures. The second rule states that if the zeros are between two non-zero digits, then they are considered to be significant. For example, in the result 1009, these zeros are lying between two non-zero digits, 1 and 9. These are non-zero digits. So these zeros are lying between two non-zero digits. So these zeros will be considered as significant. So the number of significant figures in this measured value is 4. Then the next rule states that if a number is starting from the decimal point, then all the initial zeros are insignificant. They are not significant. For example, 0.0097, as it's starting with the decimal point, so all these initial zeros are insignificant. So the number of significant figures in it are only 2. Fourth rule states that if there is no decimal point in a number, then the zeros at the end are insignificant. They are not significant. For example, 3210. There is no decimal here. So the last zero will be considered to be insignificant. It will not be counted. So the number of significant figures in this measured value is only 3. The fifth rule states that if the number is with a decimal point, then the zeros at the end will be considered to be significant. For example, 3.2100. Now these zeros are after the decimal point. So these last zeros after the decimal point will be considered to be significant. So the number of significant figures here are 5. Okay, so if there is a decimal, then the last zeros will be considered to be significant. And the sixth rule is the number of significant figures does not depend upon the system of units. In whichever system it is taken, the number of significant figures will be the same. For example, 13.6 centimeter can be written as 0.136 meter, or it can be written as 0.000136 kilometer. Okay, in each of this value, the number of significant figures is the same, that is 3. Like, let us consider 13.6 centimeter. There are 3 significant figures. 0.136 meter. Here also the number of significant figures are 3. Okay, 0.000136 kilometer, as it's starting with the decimal, so all these initial zeros will be considered to be insignificant. So the number of significant figures here are 3 only. So these are the rules for determining the significant figures. Okay, now let's discuss a question which is given in NCERT book. Question number 2.10 on page number 35. Here you have to determine the number of significant figures. The first one is 0.007 meters square. Okay, as it's starting with the decimal, so all these initial zeros will be insignificant. So the number of significant figures in it is only 1. The next one is 2.64 into 10 raised to the power 24 kgs. So this can be written as 264 followed by 22 zeros. So there won't be any decimal in this measured value. And if when there is no decimal in the measured value, the last zeros are insignificant. So the number of significant figures here will be only 3. The C part is 0.2370 grams per centimeter cube. Okay, as there is a decimal in the quantity, so the last zero will be considered to be significant. So the number of significant figures here are 4. Then the next part is 6.320 joules. Okay, again there is a decimal. So the last zero will be considered to be significant. So the number of significant figures here are 4. Then the next is 6.032 Newton per meter square. Okay, again this zero is coming between two non-zero digits, so it will be considered to be significant. So the number of significant figures here are 4. The next part is 0.0006032 meter square. As it's starting with the decimal, so all these initial zeros are insignificant. So the number of significant figures in this quantity is also 4. Okay, now let's study the rules for rounding off, because when we add or subtract any measured value, then we have to express the result in proper significant figures. Okay, also in multiplication and division. So here we'll study some rules for rounding off. The first one is, if the digit to be dropped is less than 5, then the preceding digit will remain unchanged. Okay, for example, 7.83. We have to express this result only in two significant figures. So it means we have to drop out the last digit, which is less than 5. So the preceding digit, that is the digit just before it, will remain unchanged. So the answer in proper significant figures, that is in two significant figures, will be 7.8. The second rule states that if the digit to be dropped is more than 5, then the preceding digit will be raised by 1. For example, 7.87, we have to express this result only in two significant figures. That is, we have to drop out the last digit which is greater than 5. So the preceding digit, that is the digit just before it, will be raised by 1. So 7.87 in two significant figures can be written as 7.9. The third rule states that if the digit to be dropped is 5 followed by any non-zero digit, then the preceding digit will be raised by 1. For example, 19.256. We have to express in four significant figures. That is, we have to drop the last digit, which is 6. Okay, now according to the rule, the digit which is to be dropped is 5 followed by any non-zero digit. So here it is 5 followed by 6. So then the preceding digit will be raised by 1. So 19.256 can be written as 19.26. The next rule states that if the digit to be dropped is 5 or 5 followed by zeros, then the preceding digit will remain unchanged if it is even. For example, 3.250. Here we have to drop out 5 and 5 followed by 0. That is, we have to drop out the last two digits. Then we have to see the preceding digit. If it is even, it will remain unchanged. Like in this example, 3.250. we have to express this result only in two significant figures. So we have to round it off. That is, we have to drop 5 and followed by 0. So these two digits we have to drop off. So we see the preceding digit, which is 2, as it is even, it will remain unchanged. Whereas the fifth rule states that if the digit to be dropped is 5 or 5 followed by zeros, then the preceding digit will be raised by 1 if it is odd. Like in the example, 3.750 has to be rounded off in two significant figures. That is, we have to drop out 5 followed by 0. So we have to see the preceding digit. Here it is odd, so it will be raised by 1. So these are the rules for rounding off. The first one is the digit to be dropped is less than 5. Then the digit just before it will remain unchanged. Digit to be dropped is more than 5. Then the digit just before it will be raised by 1. If the digit to be dropped is 5 followed by any non-zero digit, then it will be raised by 1. If it is only 5 or 5 followed by 0, then we have to see the preceding digit. If it is even, it will remain unchanged. If it is odd, it will be raised by 1. Next, we'll study about errors. Error is the difference between the true value and the measured value. So the difference between the true value and the value which we have measured is called as the error. So error is true value minus the measured value. And these errors can be classified in three types. The first one, systematic errors. The second is random errors. And the third one is least count error. Okay, let's study about each of them. The first one, systematic errors. These errors tend to be in one direction. That is, either they are positive or negative. Okay, as the name itself is suggesting systematic error, it means there is some particular system to minimize this error. So the cause of this error is known and it can be minimized. And either they are positive or negative. And these systematic errors are further divided in four types. The first type of systematic error is instrumental error. Okay, instrumental means there is some error in the instrument only. Okay, and this error is due to the imperfect design or imperfect manufacture of the measuring instrument. That is, there is some manufacturing defect in the instrument. For example, wearing of the meter scale at one end. That is, if the meter scale is broken at one end, or it is not starting from 0 due to some manufacturing defect, the 0 is not there. And if you are using that scale to measure any length, every time you will be getting some error. So such type of error which is in the instrument only, these errors we call it as instrumental errors. Another example is zero error in vernier calipers. Okay, there are few devices, vernier calipers, screw gauge, which are used to measure very small distances. Like the diameter of a wire could be determined, the thickness of a paper could be determined, or the thickness of a thin glass sheet could be determined. Okay, now in vernier calipers or in screw gauge, there are two scales. One is the main scale, the regular scale, what you use it. The same type of scale is there, which is called as the main scale. And in vernier calipers, there is one more scale which can slide on the main scale. Such a scale is called as the vernier scale, which are having 10 divisions on it. Okay, main scale, there can be a number of divisions, but on the vernier scale, there are only 10 divisions. Now the 0 of the main scale should coincide with the 0 of the vernier scale when the two jaws are joined. But due to some manufacturing defect, these two zeros are not coinciding, then the vernier calipers will be having some error, and such a error we call it as the zero error. So zero error means the 0 of the vernier scale may not coincide with the 0 of the main scale due to some manufacturing defect. So again, this error is in the instrument. We call it as the instrumental error. The second type of systematic error is imperfection in the experimental technique. Okay, due to the limitations of the experimental arrangement or due to some imperfection in the technique. Some error may arise, which is called as the imperfection in the experimental technique. Let's take an example. To determine the temperature of a human body, we know that the clinical thermometer is kept under the tongue, but the technique is not proper and the person keeps the thermometer under the armpit. So it will always give a lower temperature than the actual temperature of the body. So when the technique is not proper, when the technique is not perfect, some error may arise. The third type of systematic errors are personal errors, which arise completely due to the inexperience of the observer or the experimenter who is taking the readings. For example, like in some of the experiments, first the setting of the apparatus to be done and then the readings are taken. Now here the readings are taken without setting the apparatus. Then again some error may arise, which is due to the inexperience of the observer. So such an error we call it as the personal error, or due to the carelessness of the experimenter. Okay, for example, when an observer holds his head towards right while reading a scale. Okay, while reading a scale, you have to keep your eye just in front of it, in front of the scale, and then you have to take the readings. If you are keeping your head towards right or left, you won't get the accurate reading. So this is due to the carelessness or the inexperience of the experimenter. The next is errors due to external causes. These errors occur due to the change in the external conditions such as pressure, temperature, wind, etc. For example, if you are using a metallic scale to measure the temperature, in summers the metallic scale will expand as the temperature increases and you will get not correct reading, you will get incorrect reading. So due to external causes also some of the error may arise. That is the change in pressure, temperature, wind, etc. These are the external causes due to which some errors may arise. So these are some of the types of systematic errors. Okay, the second type are random errors, which may occur irregularly. Okay, and they are random in magnitude. That is, either they may be positive or negative. Okay, suppose you are taking the reading and you repeat the number of observations and every time you are getting a different reading. So this error occurs randomly, irregularly. So that is why they are also called as the chance errors. That is, they occur by chance. So these are also called as the chance errors. But these errors can also be minimized. How? By taking a number of readings and then finding the arithmetic mean of it. The random errors can be minimized. The third type of error is least count error. Now, least count is the smallest value that can be measured by any measuring instrument. Now, the errors related to the least count, which are associated with the least count or with the resolution of the instrument, such errors are called as the least count errors. So, three types of errors we have studied: systematic errors, random errors, and the least count errors. Okay, now when we calculate the errors, again these errors can be divided in three types: absolute error, relative error, and percentage error. Now let's study one by one. The first one is absolute error. It is the magnitude of the difference between the true value and the individual measurement. And it is represented by delta A. This triangle is for the symbol delta. So it is represented by delta A. Now let the measured values are taken a number of times. Let they are taken n number of times. And the measured values be A1, A2, A3 and so on An. We find the arithmetic mean of these values, which is A1 plus A2 plus A3 and so on plus An divided by the number of observations, that is n. Now this mean value will be considered as the true value of that quantity. This mean value is the actual value. So we take a number of observations A1, A2, A3, An, and we find its arithmetic mean. This mean value will be considered as the true value. Now we can find out the absolute error in each measurement. In the first measurement, the first measured value is A1 and A mean is the true value. So A mean minus A1. This is the absolute error in the first measurement. The same way, delta A2, which is the absolute error in the second measurement, is A mean minus A2 and so on. And in the nth measurement, the absolute error will be A mean minus AN. Now these absolute errors, it may be positive or negative, but the magnitude of the absolute error, which is the modulus of delta A, that will be always positive. So the mean absolute error is calculated by adding all these absolute errors and dividing by the number of observations. So the mean absolute error is the modulus of delta A1 plus the mod of delta A2 and so on plus the mod of delta An divided by n. So the mean absolute error is calculated. So first we take a number of observations, then we find out the absolute error in each measurement, then we find out the mean absolute error. Now the final result can be written as, this is the true value plus delta A mean and A mean minus delta A mean. That is, the measured value is lying between A mean plus delta A mean to A mean minus delta A mean. So it can be written as A mean plus minus the mean of absolute error. Okay, the next one is relative error, which is also called as the fractional error. It is defined as the ratio of the mean absolute error to the mean value. So the ratio of the mean absolute error to the mean value, we call it as relative or the fractional error. This is also represented by a symbol. This symbol here is also called as delta A. So delta A is equal to delta A mean upon A mean. Whereas the percentage error, this relative error, when it is expressed in percentage, it is called as the percentage error. So percentage error is delta A mean upon A mean into 100. We'll get it in percentage because we know that when we find out in percentage, we multiply it by 100. So the percentage error is the relative error expressed in percentage, and the relative error is delta A mean upon A mean. So this relative error expressed in percentage, we call it as percentage error. Okay, now let's study the combination of errors. Here 4 combinations we will study: addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. The first one, addition in errors. Let two values A and B are added and their sum is Z. Now when the measured values are added, the measured values will have some error in it. So the measured value of A can be written as A plus minus delta A, where delta A is the absolute error in the measured value A, because whenever we measure it, there will be some absolute error in it and it could be written as A plus minus delta A. The same way measured value of B can be written as B plus minus delta B, where delta B is the absolute error in B. Okay, now when the measured values are added, there will be some error in the sum also. Let the absolute error in the sum is delta Z. So now the sum can be written as Z plus minus delta Z when the measured values are added, that is A plus minus delta A plus B plus minus delta B. Now this can be written as A plus B plus minus delta A plus minus delta B. Now we know that Z is equal to A plus B, so it can be cancelled from both the sides. Now what remains? Plus minus delta z is equal to plus minus delta a plus minus delta b. So the maximum possible error in the sum is, we'll consider the positive sign. So plus delta z is equal to plus delta a plus delta b. So to find out the maximum possible error, we'll consider the positive sign, and the maximum positive error in the sum will be equal to sum of the absolute errors in individual measurement. Now let's find out in subtraction in errors. Okay, let a and b are the true values, and when subtracted, let their differences z. So let z is equal to a minus b. These are the true values. When subtracted, the difference is z. Now again, the measured value of a can be written as a plus minus delta a, and the measured value of b can be written as b plus minus delta b. Now when the measured values are subtracted, there will be some error in the difference also. Let the absolute error in the difference is plus minus delta z. So the difference can be written as z plus minus delta z. It comes when the measured values are subtracted, that is a plus minus delta a minus b plus minus delta b. Okay, these are the measured values. When subtracted, then we get the difference z plus minus delta z. Why? Because the difference will also have some absolute error. Now this can be written as z plus minus delta z, which is equal to a minus b plus minus delta a. This minus, when multiplied, this will be minus plus delta b, which can be written as plus minus delta b. Okay, now as z is equal to a minus b, we can cancel it from both the sides. Now what remains? Plus minus delta z is equal to plus minus delta a plus minus delta b. Now the maximum possible error in the difference. Again, we'll consider the positive sign. So the maximum possible error in the difference will be equal to plus delta z, which will be equal to, as we are considering the positive sign, so maximum error here will be plus delta a plus delta b. So again we get the same result, that is the maximum possible error in the difference is the sum of the absolute errors in individual measurement. So for addition or subtraction, we find out the maximum possible error, that is the maximum absolute error, which will be equal to sum of the absolute errors in individual measurement. Okay, now let's study the errors in multiplication. Let z is the product when a is multiplied by b. That is, a and b are the true values. When multiplied, the product is z. Now when the measured values are multiplied, the measured value of a is a plus minus delta a multiplied by the measured value of b, which is b plus minus delta b, where delta a and delta b are the absolute errors in a and b respectively. Then the product will also have some error. Let the absolute error in the product is plus minus delta z. Now this can be written as z plus minus delta z, which is equal to, multiply the bracket terms, a into b plus minus a into delta b plus minus b into delta a plus minus delta a into delta b. Okay, now let us divide the left hand side by z and the right hand side by a into b. Why? Because we know that z is equal to a into b. So let's divide the left hand side by z and the right hand side by a into b. So what do we get? Z upon z, it is 1 plus minus delta z upon z Now divide AB by each term. The first term will be 1. The next term will be A into delta B upon AB plus minus B into delta A upon AB. The last term will be plus minus delta A into delta B upon AB. For 1 and 1 you can cancel out from both the sides. Okay, now this last term, delta A into delta B. Delta A is the absolute error in the first measurement, which is a very small quantity because error will be very, very small. Delta B is again a very small quantity. The product of two small quantities is very, very small, which is further divided by the true values. A and B are quite finite values. So this term is a very, very small quantity which can be neglected as compared to other terms. So this term could be neglected. Why? Because it is very, very small and it could be neglected as compared to other terms. Now what remains? Plus minus delta Z upon Z is equal to, here you can cancel out A plus minus delta B upon B, and here B could be cancelled out, plus minus delta A upon A. Now what is this quantity? Delta Z upon Z, absolute error upon the mean value. We call it as the relative error. So the maximum possible relative error. Now as we are finding out the maximum, it means will consider the positive sign. So the maximum possible relative error in the product will be equal to plus delta Z upon Z, which is equal to plus delta A upon A plus delta B upon B. So the maximum possible relative error in the product will be equal to plus delta Z upon Z, which will be equal to sum of the relative errors in individual measurement. Okay, so in multiplication we find out the relative error. So the maximum possible relative error will be equal to sum of the relative errors in individual measurement. Next we'll find out in division, errors in division. Let Z is equal to A upon B. A and B are the true values. When divided, let the quotient is Z. Okay, but when the measured values are divided, then the quotient will have some error, absolute error, delta Z. So the value can be written as Z plus minus delta Z when the measured values are divided. The measured value of A is A plus minus delta A and the measured value of B is B plus minus delta B. Okay, now taking A common from the numerator, we get 1 plus minus delta A upon A. Similarly, taking B common from the denominator, we get 1 plus minus delta B upon B. Okay, now this can be written as A upon B multiplied by 1 plus minus delta A upon A into 1 plus minus delta B upon B raised to the power minus 1. Whereas on the left hand side it is Z plus minus delta Z. Okay, now we know that A upon B is also equal to Z. Z plus minus delta Z. This A upon B we can write it as Z. Why? Because we know that Z is equal to A upon B. 1 plus minus delta A upon A, 1 plus minus delta B upon B raised to the power minus 1. Okay, now dividing both sides by Z. Left hand side, when we divide it by Z, we get 1 plus minus delta Z upon Z. Whereas right hand side, when we divide it by Z, this term will be 1. So what remains? 1 plus minus delta A upon A multiplied by 1 plus minus delta b upon b raised to the power minus 1. Okay, now this term 1 plus minus delta b upon b raised to the power minus 1 can be expanded by binomially. So using binomial expansion, this you will study in maths. It's a long series. You get a long series. Here for right now, those who have bio, they can just understand that this minus 1 will be multiplied over here. So this becomes 1 minus plus delta b upon b, which can be again written as 1 plus minus delta b upon b. So binomially it is expanded and we get a long series. The raised terms are neglected as compared to these two terms. So we retain only these two terms. So the only thing, this minus 1 will be multiplied over here. The power is multiplied over here. So we get this answer. Now substituting it here, what do we get? 1 plus minus delta z upon z, which is equal to 1 plus minus delta a upon a. And this term is again equal to 1 plus minus delta b upon b. Multiply it. Multiply the bracket terms. What do we get? 1 plus minus delta a upon a plus minus delta b upon b plus minus delta a into delta b upon ab. Okay, 1 you can cancel out from both the sides. So again, this term is a very small quantity. So this term can be neglected as compared to the other two terms. So what remains? Plus minus delta z upon z equals to plus minus delta a upon a plus minus delta b upon b. Now the maximum possible error. Which error is this? This is again the relative error. So maximum possible relative error here, that is in the quotient, is equal to, which sign will we consider? Positive sign, plus delta z upon z, which will be equal to plus delta a upon a plus delta b upon b. So the maximum possible relative error in the quotient, when it is divided, then also it is equal to sum of the relative errors in individual measurement. So here we see that in multiplication and division, we find out the maximum possible relative error, which is the sum of the relative errors in individual measurement. Whereas in addition and subtraction, we find out the maximum possible absolute error, which will be equal to sum of the absolute errors in individual measurement. Okay, also let's find out the errors in power. For example, let z is equal to a square, which can be written as a into a. Okay, now in multiplication, we calculate the relative error in z, which will be equal to sum of the relative errors in individual measurement, that is delta a upon a plus delta a upon a, which can be written as twice delta a upon a. Now let z is equal to a cube, which can be written as a into a into a. Now the maximum relative error in z will be equal to sum of the relative errors in individual measurement, that is delta a upon a plus delta a upon a plus delta a upon a. That is how many times? 3 times. 3 delta a upon a. Now if z is equal to a raised to the power n, so here we are seeing that the power is multiplied by the relative error. Now if the power is n, then the relative error in z will be equal to n delta a upon a. So the power will be multiplied to the relative error. Now let's take another example. If z is equal to a raised to the power p, b raised to the power q upon c raised to the power r, then the relative error in z will be equal to p times, as p is the power, P times the relative error in A. Now this A is multiplied, A raised to the power P is multiplied to B raised to the power Q. So the relative errors are added, plus Q delta B upon B, plus in division also the relative errors are added, plus R delta C upon C. Okay, based on it, let's do few questions. Let a physical quantity P is equal to A square B raised to the power half upon C cube. You have to find out the relative error in P. The relative error in P is delta P upon P will be equal to 2 delta A upon A, as A square is multiplied to B raised to the power half. So the relative errors are added and the power will be multiplied. So half delta B upon B plus 3 times the delta C upon C. In division also the relative errors are added. Now question number 2. In the above question, if the percentage error in A is 2%, in B is 4%, and in C is 3%, find the percentage error in P. Okay, from the relative error, how do we find out the percentage error? Multiplying it by 100. So delta P upon P into 100 will get it in percentage. So on the right hand side also, when on the left hand side we have multiplied by 100, so on the right hand side also we multiply it by 100 plus half delta B upon B into 100 plus 3 times delta C upon C into 100. Okay, now what is this bracket term? Delta A upon A into 100. This is the percentage error in A. So, and in the question, this is given to be 2%. The percentage error in A is 2%. So, delta A upon A into 100 is 2% plus half delta B upon B into 100. This is the percentage error in B, which is given as 4%. Plus 3 times delta C upon C into 100 is the percentage error in C, which is given as 3%. So the answer is 4% plus 2% plus 9%. That is, this is equal to 15%. Okay, if the percentage error in mass is 3% and in volume is 2%, find the percentage error in density. Okay, as we know that density is mass upon volume. So here you have to find out the percentage error in density. So the percentage error in density will be equal to the percentage error in mass plus the percentage error in volume. Here percentage error in mass is given as 3%. A percentage error in density will be equal to 5%. Okay, now next question number 4 is, in measuring the density of a cube, the percentage error in mass is 2% and in measuring the length of the cube is 3%. You have to find out the percentage error in density. Again, the formula is density is mass upon volume. As it is a cube, the volume will be equal to L cube. Now, the relative error in the density, delta D upon D, and if we multiply it by 100, this becomes the percentage error, will be equal to delta M upon M into 100 plus 3 delta L upon L into 100. Now this quantity delta M upon M into 100, this is given as 2% plus 3 times this quantity is given as 3%. So the answer is 11%. Let's discuss one more question. Now, if mass is given as 2 kg plus minus 0.2 kg and the volume is given as 3 plus minus 0.3 meter cube. You have to find out the percentage error in density. We know that density is mass upon volume. Okay, so the relative error in density delta D upon D will be equal to delta M upon M plus delta V upon V. Multiplying both sides by 100, we will get the percentage error in density. So it is delta M upon M into 100 plus delta V upon V into 100. Okay, now what is delta M over here? The absolute error in mass. How can we write down? M plus minus delta M. So what is delta M? It is the absolute error in mass, which is 0.2 kg upon mass. The mean value of mass is 2 kg into 100 plus minus delta V. The absolute error in volume is 0.3 upon the mean volume, which is 3 into 100. So on simplifying it, what do we get? 20 divided by 2 plus 30 divided by 3, that is 10 plus 10, which will be equal to 20%. So the percentage error in the density will be 20%. So we have completed the chapter. In the next part, we'll discuss few questions based on dimensions, significant figures, and also on errors. And also we'll discuss few NCERT questions. So kindly subscribe to the channel so that you can watch the next part also. Thank you.